Hey everybody, welcome back to Jade and XD here on Patreon. So you asked for it, we got it. Welcome to the first episode of Serial.
Hey.
Done by us. Now mind you, Serial is a podcast. It's not necessarily on right now. But this particular, it's like an anthology podcast, and back in 2014, a woman by the name of Sarah Koenig brought to us this podcast via This American Life, where she followed a story, each episode told week by week.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode, and in this season, it's 10 episodes, and she goes on a journey on who killed a young woman back in 1999, and if the person who was accused of murdering the woman or the young lady, are they the true murderers or not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, any initial thoughts before we dive in?
No.
It's been 7 years since we covered this, because remember we did cover it on I don't know if we covered it on Two Guys and a Girl or if we cut it on Jade and XD.
We covered it, or we just talked about it frequently?
We might have talked about it frequently. I don't think
Okay.
we started doing this type of stuff until it was just you and I.
That's what I appreciate going back and listening to it with fresh ears.
Mm-hmm.
I still think I stand in the same place, actually. Jay did that shit. And if he didn't do it, he had something heavy to do with it. And Adnan either is innocent or a sociopath. One or the other.
My thoughts have changed. I don't think either of them did it. I don't think either of them did it.
Why would Jay make up so many occurrences, though? Well, you know what? We should probably discuss it as we continue forward.
Right. Because keep in mind, and this is, we're listening to this after listening this and then watching the documentary and then listening to Undisclosed, which is who Rabia's podcast was about. And then there's been more documentaries and the new appeal. Like, we've gone through a lot with him.
We have. And we will watch the HBO documentary as a family on Scener in the course of doing this re-zhuzh of Serial.
Yeah. So there are spoiler alerts. I don't know how much to tell you. It's a spoiler. Like, it's some shit that happened in 1999.
And this podcast came out in 2014.
Yeah,
so
again,
you know how I feel about spoiler conversation. I think it's stupid.
Right. So let's dive in, shall we?
Yes, let's get into it.
You can also find this in season 1, because you guys always ask, what season, when we tell you every day. But it's season 1 of Serial. You can find it on anywhere you get your podcast, or you can go to serial.org.
The first and the best.
Right. Although the third season was good when she tackled on
Cleveland justice system. That was very good. That second season was some bullshit though. But anyway.
Oh yeah, she had to appeal to the mockers.
Damn, Sarah. Okay. Anyway.
You could tell she. Anyway. So it opens with Sarah Koenig, and she's a reporter for, This American Life for WEBZ in Chicago. And she lets us know that this whole season the crux of the whole season is a 21-minute window that happened in 1999.
Yep.
And it takes place in Maryland, and she talks about memory and how it's difficult for you to account for your time. And in general, she talks about, like, you know, these kids, you know, a murder happened in 1999 with, you know, a teenager. So trying to interview children without the advent of social media to ask what happened that day is very difficult. And, you know, she talks to her nephew and a couple of people.
She performs an exercise.
About like, what do you remember? Like, what happened last week? Most of them people, nigga, I don't know. Wasn't I with you? No, I don't. I was at home, or I was blah 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 blah.
I was probably at work, and I did it with myself while I was re-listening to this. I said, okay, let me try to recall last Tuesday. Right? I know I recorded with XD. I'm pretty certain that the recording was pushed back by 30 minutes to an hour at some point. And I smoked that day. I can be certain of it. Outside of that, I cannot tell you if I walked to the bodega. I cannot tell you if I ordered groceries unless I go and refer back to my Instacart app. I can't tell you if I mopped the floor that day. Like, I have no clue. I don't know my ins and outs every day.
Same. It's the very same thing. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I know what I do, and it's very breezy, so I'm like, there's no, like, changes to it. Nothing significant really happens. But, like, I can't necessarily remember what happened this past Tuesday, 2 days ago. I know we recorded, and because I don't even remember what the episode was about, honestly.
Me neither. No.
So, you know, however, I do remember yesterday because I had to go to the doctor and I had to get swabbed.
See, that's different because it's out of your normal routine. It's out of the ordinary.
Right. So it was like, you know, those things you remember. And, you know, we learned that a significant event happened in 1999 on January 13th. A young lady named Heyman Lee disappeared out in like Baltimore, Maryland area. She was a star student. She played lacrosse, I believe, and volleyball. Straight A student, like star athlete and all that good stuff. And she was found in the woods.
Yeah.
By some random man, and she was strangled.
Which, that didn't sit right with me either. I mean, I know the man said he was going to take a pee-pee, but I don't know. And it could just be me being suspicious of everything and everyone. But
no, his testimony was weird.
I was like who goes to take a pee-pee that deep in the woods? I just don't.
Right. Like, and I feel like we figure his story out in episode 7. So like it's a while before we get back to that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's very. Most of a lot of the situations of people surrounding this case are just strange.
They're a little sketchy.
Yeah, it's just like, is everybody like colluding?
Right, I was like, did everybody kill her? Shit.
Right. It's on some who killed Sarah shit.
So how it comes to pass that they realize she's missing is that she's supposed to pick up her little cousin. And with her being this responsible teenager and this good girl, when she doesn't show up, that's when the family knew something was off. So her body is found. Her body was found February 9th. She went missing on January 23rd. Her body was found February 9th. And the method in which she was killed was manual strangulation. And then Adnan was arrested for her murder.
About 6 weeks later, yeah.
Yep. And he's been locked up ever since.
Yeah. So that's a really brief intro of what happened with them. She was reached out to by a woman named Rabia Chaudhry. Rabia is a lawyer, and she is a friend of the family to Adnan Syed's family. Yeah,
her brother's his bestie, one of his besties.
And we see how close they are when you watch the documentary. So there's no BS. She reached out to Sarah to help her with the case, to just take a look at it because, Sarah had, written maybe an article or two about it when she was at the Baltimore Sun newspaper, but, she knew Sarah did good investigative work over through This American Life.
Yes. No, are you... What's up?
I just wanted to tell you that Trill's head stinks and she needs a bath.
Okay, all right.
So I was just ask you if I can give her a bath.
Huh?
I was just gonna ask you if I can give her a bath.
Well, not by yourself, because she'll scratch you up.
How? Because she doesn't have water?
No, she doesn't like water. And we have to get proper pet shampoo for her.
So her head will stink?
No, we'll get some...
It smells like her... It smells like her food. She stuck her head in her food.
Okay. All right, so,
It needs a bath.
I hear you. We'll get her one. I can't do anything right this second, though, because I'm literally in the middle of recording.
Sorry. You just have to cut this part out.
Okay.
She better produce.
She stuck her head in her food. I'm like, okay.
As soon as she said her expiration, I was like, oh, she is Jade.
Like, bro, I hear you. I got it. She needs a bath.
Girl. She said post haste, my nigga.
Oh, I'm like, okay, I literally can't do anything about that right this very second in time.
Oh my gosh. But yes, Rabia emails Sarah for help.
Yes.
And
yeah,
which is rare.
She actually wrote about the attorney, Adnan's attorney.
Oh yes.
Who
Christina Gutierrez, which
had,
we'll talk about next week.
Yes, but she had a laundry list of cases in which she fucked up, and so she was disbarred before dying. And then Adnan's case was actually the very last one that she had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how Rabia found Sarah.
Right. So Rabia goes to see Sarah. Rabia goes to see Sarah, and she has a whole bunch of files in her trunk of her car.
Mm-hmm.
Like some water damage because they've been in and out of her trunk for the last 15 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Since 99, and it's like 2013 when they were doing it, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Also to note, the crazy part about Serial is the fact that not all of it was pre-recorded. Like they were putting together week by week, because there'd be some moments where Sarah would come and be like, all right, so this is what happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, dead ass. It was like, okay, y'all working.
Yeah.
Y'all think y'all Jade and XD.
Okay. Yeah. So, they talk about Adnan's character, and they, Adnan was a good kid.
Mm-hmm.
Adnan, A and B student, Rabia has a different picture of him than what's actually on paper.
Oh, she hyped your boy up. She hyped him
up. Yeah, she thought that he was the bee's knees, that he was like carrying the hood on his shoulders, like he was, the wonder boy of the Pakistani community.
Yeah, he was Pakistani Franklin Saint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In reality, he was cool.
Yeah. In reality, he was Pakistani Franklin Saint.
Yeah, like he was. Yeah, like he was like he wasn't in trouble. Like
until he was.
Yeah, I mean, he liked women. What teenager doesn't?
A few.
Well, this wasn't. This.
I was like, sir.
But you know what I mean. He was a practicing heterosexual. Like he liked. He liked sports and shit. So he's a regular kid.
Grew up in a very strict household. He wasn't allowed to date or have girlfriends. So, you know, he had to do regular teenage shit. He had to sneak. He had a girlfriend, Heyman Lee, and he had to sneak and have her as a girlfriend. He had to sneak and go to dances.
Yes.
And go ahead.
Which they in the episode they do talk about that, where they interview, like Robbie interviews like family, and they talk about how like her brother was like on the prom royal court, and she had no idea, and she was also uncomfortable hearing it because of it was so ingrained. Mind you, this shit happened like 20 years ago, but she was
girl.
like, she was uncomfortable.
Like, too much.
Right. It's not like he was talking about like, you know, he fucked a watermelon. It was just like he went to prom.
Like, what?
But, you know, I was trying to think of something less offensive than what I had in my head, so that's what came out.
Oh my God. I did laugh at Sarah when she was talking about getting, like when Robbie at first called her. And she was like, I mean, this ain't really my work, but, you know, I'll see I'll see what's going on. And then she started digging into it. She was like, bitch, this is tea. Like, she's like, bitch, this is tea. She's like, we don't do this, but we got to do this.
Right. I do want to point out that Adnan and Heyman Lee went to a predominantly black high school.
Yeah, in Baltimore County.
In Baltimore County. Now, this is what made me change my idea of what's happening in the story. And I say this with 21 eyes. You know what I mean? Like, when I think about police brutality, and I think about like how the history of police corruption, you know, police corruption didn't start at like Sean Bell and Amadou Diallo, you know what I mean? Like, so it's one of those things that you think about, like, well, what was going on politically at the time? Because remember, that was my first question of like, well, was this after 2001? I see, you know, America was on one with some, you know, Islamophobe shit.
Yeah.
So I got that. But, you know, you telling me this happened in 99, I don't necessarily remember the political climate of, you know, like that. But
who did we have?
It is important to
Bush
know.
Jr.?
No, we had yeah, we did.
Bush Jr. in 99, right?
No.
Or was it still?
I think we were still at Clinton, because the 2000 vote was Gore and Bush Jr.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but
America been on some bullshit, honestly, with other cultures. Even before 9/11, but 9/11 did heighten it quite a bit. So that's actually a good point that you brought up, that you need to look at the political climate. Like you said, we got to look at the fact that they're in Baltimore County. We know Baltimore police have been known to be corrupt. We know that there's a lot that's been going on in Baltimore. So, you know, you do have to look at all of that. Even in the case of Jay being a young black man who's questioned by the police, clearly he doesn't have proper support, or, you know what I'm saying? So go ahead.
Which, man, see, that's what throws me off later with this. Because when I was listening to this and I made that note, and when I said I changed my mind about my theory, or I'm beginning to change my mind about my theory of what happened, I thought about further down the line of the interview, not just this particular interview we heard with Jay and the detective, but we hear a couple of different testimony, and I always thought, like, maybe there's something there. Like, was there coercion there? Was there like some make it happen? I also watched a lot of crime shit. It's wild. Oh my God.
What?
We're gonna pause Serial for a second. You have to watch. I'm gonna tell you about what happened in the episode, but you need to watch it. Because Alexis called and told me to watch it. If y'all ever want to know what I did for a living for the last, 10 years or so, watch the last episode of SVU. Not the one that probably came out this week, but the one that happened last week. So let me tell you. So it opens up with this woman who's in a homeless shelter. Well, she's street homeless, and then she gets in the homeless shelter. But then she's like walking around or whatever, and this nigga is like cleaning stuff. And she's like, oh, this is a nice building. And he was like, oh, you got to get a social worker to get in here. So they got her supportive housing or whatever. So then Mama got her a little social worker and moved into one of them big fancy apartment buildings in Manhattan. Again, shit that I do. Or did. So then
XD, MSW, keep going.
Right. So then Mama had the super was like, helping her move in. It was super nice and yada, yada, yada. But then he would like, in the next scene, he'd be coming out of there buttoning his shirt or whatever. So it was like, so she was offering more than just rent. You know what I mean? Oh. So then, excuse me, this old nosy battle axe across the hall saw the super coming out of old girl's apartment. And she was like, nah, we don't do that shit here. You one of them girls that they don't put
bricks.
Yeah. And so she was like, oh, you must be one of them people that got in here through like a voucher or something. Now, back when I was doing this shit, like a lot of the people that I moved like supportive tenants into luxury buildings, they were pissed.
I know. I know.
Because of their stupid elitist attitude. Okay, just because she tricking outwardly don't mean that you not tricking secretly.
I mean, and on top of that, like, what does that have to do with what's going on inside of your abode?
Right. So, in this particular building, in this particular story, it's important to note that luxury building has a pour door. Now, have I ever told you what a pour door was? Mm-mm. Oh, they have them in New York. So if you live in New York, pay attention, especially if you're doing stuff in the housing lottery. There are luxury buildings, for example, 40 Riverside. I used to work for that building in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. There is an area that you can only enter if you acquired your unit through the housing lottery at a discounted rate.
Not a colors only entrance.
Yes, if you don't pay market rate, which, mind you, a studio at 40 Riverside, well, I don't know about now because of the pandemic, but studio at 40 Riverside starts at like $3. So
I'm trying to think that because my homeboy had he lived in a luxury building, on the lower east. No, not even lower east side. It was like Second Avenue. It was in the city, like it was in the city, but it wasn't like the lower east side. It was a little above. But regardless, maybe somewhere in the 20s. It was a luxury building, and we went through the front. So I've also never lived in a luxury building. So
first of all, it's illegal to have a pour door.
I'm like, I know a maintenance entrance. Are you talking about like the maintenance entrance?
No, girl. It is an entrance specifically designed. You can Google 40 Riverside pour door right now and find the stories. There are a couple buildings that now, mind you, they're not active now. They'll call them resident entrance only. However, but now you can enter the front of the building now too. But yeah, there was a modality of pour door. Anywho, so the they were like, okay, so the nosy battle axe went to go tell Benson and shit downtown. So of course they get nosy and have to look into it. Ice-T has to go look into it because it's not a show if they don't. So right. They look into it and they're talking about like how there's different white men that come in and out of her apartment. But she was like, I'm safe, my kid is safe, whatever. The kid starts talking and it's like, no, there's niggas that be in here and I have to be in here quietly. So they go find the chick who used to be in the building before in that same apartment. Found out that mama was tricking too, and she said, well, if she was just like me, she had to do what she needed to do to survive. How did she get into that building? Through the same social worker, through this nonprofit called Proud Mary or We Got Y'all or something, whatever the fuck, right? So it was an Afro-Latino woman who was the director of of the building, of the social work type of thing. She was like some revered woman in the city, like
she was a
congresspeople.
madam.
She was getting these girls into these apartments, getting them housed so that congressmen and other men in power can. Yes, girl.
So the social worker was the one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the men are nasty and y'all are all guilty. But she was the brains.
I cut a whole bunch of shit out, but yes, that's exactly what happened.
I'm gonna watch it.
Oh, it was good.
I gotta watch SVU for the next few weeks anyway because a friend of ours is going to pop up in it.
Really? Who?
Jasmina.
Oh, I actually knew this. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
She's going to be in an upcoming episode of SVU.
I'm excited. So, anywho.
Take this part out, but she's going to play Ice-T's attorney.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, back to the shit. Let's be real.
Yes,
that was crime. That was true crime. So, we're on task. So Sarah tells us she spent a year on this case, and rightfully so. I mean, I feel like she spent longer because even in season 2 of Serial, she gives us an update on season 1 a couple times because a lot of things happened at Adnan since the recording of the podcast.
Ooh.
So she breaks down the state's case against Adnan, and what I like about this show is the fact that she just lays out facts. Yeah. Right? There's nothing, like, she does have white woman opinion inferences, but they're very few and not many. And so she says the state's defense was what you mentioned earlier because, you know, it was a crime of passion of sorts because, you know, he wasn't allowed to keep this type of relationship, and so because she broke up with him and she found happiness elsewhere, he felt resentful and decided to kill her.
Yeah, they talk about the state puts together their case talking about his strict background that we mentioned, how he's not supposed to date, but he was a teenager who did teenager things, and his relationship with Hay was a secret, and they used that against him because they said that he put everything on the line to be with this girl so that when she broke up with him, he lost his shit and then killed her. Then their second theory was that he's a big fat liar. So he pretends to be this person in society, pretends to be this person within his community, in the mosque and school and so forth and so on. But he leads a double life. He drinks, he smokes, he has sex, and it's proof that he has bad character.
Right. Now, he's 17.
Nigga.
Like, now, I know we joke and say kids have bad vibes and shit like that, but like,
sometimes they do.
Yeah, I just don't understand how somebody could flip the script that quickly and lead that much of a double life where you don't know, especially strict Pakistani parents. Like, you know what foreign parents give. There's no such thing as privacy.
And also, no. But also, I do know I've known some crafty teenagers. And I was a crafty teenager. One of them. Exactly. So I do know that as smart as my parents were and as on it as a lot of other parents are, way more so, we still got away with a lot of shit. And I know some of them creatures were wretched. So I do, but I'm not defending the state. If I make sense.
There's points made, however, in the wrong points.
Right, because like you said, if that's the case, nigga, damn near most of us are criminals. If they base this case on these things, then most of us will nigga, I am a criminal.
Right.
Put me on the row.
Right. And like they try to use that like proof of bad character thing, like, oh, he went to prom, oh, he had a girlfriend, you know, we know that's not allowed in his culture, so of course he would kill somebody. That's a hell of a jump, the state of Maryland.
That's also the same people who would probably be, if they knew about it in their personal lives, would be like, well, they don't even let their kids go to prom. My God, like, what kind of... That's the same people doing the same shit. So y'all can miss me with that.
Which also lends itself to, like, the jury and how this conviction happened. Because listening to this again, after all the things that we consume and stuff, I watched countless videos of crime shit. You know, that's our shit or whatever. I often think back to that 30 for 30 on OJ.
Oh,
and
yes.
how they talked about the jury selection. So it was like there was no way that he wasn't going to lose anyway.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like there was no way he wasn't going to win.
He had a star-studded team.
He had a team, and he had a predominantly black jury who loved him from the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm. His appeal.
Right. So again, you know, it's super important to know why we have to not skip out on jury duty. You know, it's important to serve.
You're right.
You know, as much as aggravating as it is.
You're right.
Just saying.
No, you're right. We got to do the jury duty because, you know, it be niggas in court that need us.
Exactly. Just to say no. That's all it is. Just no, he ain't do it.
So that means...
And you can sit there.
Either show up. I'm talking to myself as well. Either show up, or when you show up, don't do that shit where you you purposely get yourself ruled out.
Yeah, I used to do that too. The last time I had jury duty, I was with Robert Townsend. And I was... Oh,
yeah, that's right.
And I was racist.
Guilty. That nigga is guilty.
Yeah. Hang that nigga now.
Hang that nigga. I got the rope right here. The problem with that is they would be like, okay, come join the jury.
Exactly.
Which might be a good thing, because then you get on the jury and be like, hit y'all with the okie doke. Hold this shit up for 75 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it.
Come on, Cheryl. Let's vote.
Nope, y'all want guilty. Chinese again? Because we in this bitch all night.
Okay, I ain't got a job, so fuck it.
This is my job. Professional jury duty, bitch.
Okay, I'm getting these $30 a day. That's paying my T-Mobile bill.
Thank you. And my Cricket Wireless.
Okay. This nice hotel room that got central air conditioning.
But I will stay in jury duty, bitch. Just okay. I will proclaim this nigga's innocence forever. Okay. But anyway,
the part that's wild about the story is that there's no physical evidence.
None.
They are basing this conviction and case off of a testimony from a nigga named Jay.
Literally. No fingernails, no hair, no blood. The closest thing they had was some fingerprints, and that was kind of null and void because he was known to ride in her car often. So they didn't have any physical evidence whatsoever.
There was nothing, no fibers around the neck if she was strangled, no. Someone tells me again, they didn't investigate this shit for real.
They didn't.
So Jay's account, so they go into Jay's testimony, and Jay, you know, they were casual friends, and his story kept changing throughout the whole thing, and it still changes to this day. Mm-hmm. And because he did an interview right after this came out, and his story was very different, and his story was different on Undisclosed, which came out after that interview. So, anywho, somebody's lying, and they arrested him back in February, right before they arrested Adnan.
Yeah, the milk ain't clean.
Because they pit him against Adnan.
Mm-hmm. which we know the police to do.
Yes. So they interview Jay, and we hear the testimony, and he says that Adnan told him, and I quote, "I'm gonna kill that bitch." His story goes is that...
Trigger warning.
Yes. His story, Jay says that on January 13th, his girlfriend Stephanie had a birthday. And that Adnan had planned everything out to kill Heyman Lee.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Oh, well, while you go get a gift for Stephanie or whatever, you'll say that I'm going to go with Hay, do what I need to do, and then we'll link back up at this Best Buy." And that he picks up Adnan at the Best Buy at the time that he told him to. And remember, this Best Buy is important, which is no longer there. It's like a public storage thing now.
Yeah, but he says that he said that Adnan met him at the crib, like skipped school or some shit, or left school early, met him at the crib, and then went to go do his thing, went like back to school, left his car with him, which that was already weird. Then later on, goes, because he's going to meet up with Hay, has Hay's car at the Best Buy, tells Jay to come to the Best Buy to come meet him, shows him her body in the trunk. They go to drop the thing off at the park and ride around and then come back.
Right. Now, Jay has lying nigga cadence because none of that made sense at all.
No, the thing which you actually made me start to think of this more just a few minutes ago is now I'm wondering if he got lying nigga cadence, because the whole time I'm just like, yo, this nigga is sketchy and da-da-da-da. But at the same time, we also know the police to coerce people into telling stories that fit the narrative that they want them to fit. Because if you look at this case from an angle of being skeptical of the system and understanding the corrupt ways in which they've behaved, we know that they had no physical evidence. They had nothing in this case. So they had to make something out of something. So we don't know what kind of coercion was happening behind the scenes on behalf of the police just needing to cover their own ass, basically. Or we don't know if Jay really is a sketchy ass nigga and was just lying.
Right. Exactly. He said that he drove Adnan back to the school because Adnan needed to be seen so he could have an alibi.
Exactly.
Again, which is weird because why would somebody at 17 think of that?
Sounds like police talk to me, honestly.
Exactly. And so he said after that, they pick up shovels and go bury Hay in Lincoln Park.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is where we finally talk to Adnan. Now, for all intents and purposes, Adnan has lying nigga cadence too.
He just got nigga cadence.
There are moments where you can tell there's something different, but I will say for the most part, he is very true and he has nigga cadence.
Yeah, he got nigga cadence.
He talks like he's, our Pakistani Nubian king. Yes.
Truth be told, okay, I was like, wow, he can totally transition to Love After Lockup after this if he ever gets out, because
he's fine too.
Well, that's what I was getting to. So, we find out that Adnan is in a max security facility in Western Maryland, and this is where Sarah asks him to call her twice a week, so they have a twice a week phone meeting in which she's breaking down these different things in this case, getting his side of things, and piecing everything together. So Sarah's little tone gets to changing when she starts talking about Adnan. If she was a black woman, she would be like, he's a big back nigga. I thought he was getting ready to be a little nigga, but he's a big back nigga. And, I saw that little struggly ass beard in those pictures, but my man's came into his own. She said his beard is full and he's tall and I was like, oh, Sarah got a little crush. Okay.
Mama caught the vapors, okay?
Did.
And when I first saw him, I did too. I said, I did not expect him to look like this. Even as a teenager, he was like, I could see why kids would he's an attractive person on campus. Like, I could see that. He wasn't like the pimply kid on campus. He was just, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I could see why.
Yeah.
I could see why people would be into, like, why he would be popular of sorts.
I've always liked
Let me say
niggas,
that.
so it's just hard for me. But
Yeah.
yes, on an unbiased
My first
viewpoint.
boyfriend was Indian.
Okay.
My very, very, very first boyfriend was Indian.
I can see that actually. You grew up in a diverse community.
Yeah.
Yes. But you know, Adnan proclaims his innocence in this first conversation. He's like, listen, I didn't have no bad blood with Hay. Like, we was good. It was puppy love shit when we broke up. You know what I'm saying? My feelings were a little hurt and I got over it pretty quickly. And it was like, all right, that's what it was. He said that he was never mad or angry. He didn't have any like ill intent towards her or anything against her. And he had no reason to kill her.
Right.
So Sarah starts to ask him questions about the day. And this is where it goes back to the original theory of it's really hard for us to recall, you know, how our days really go, like if nothing monumental happens. And so, you know, he's like, the day was kind of hazy. It was mostly uneventful. And mainly the main thing that stood out was that it was Stephanie's birthday. This is where I guess I don't know if I didn't pick up on it or hear it or what in the first time I listened to this, but this is where that little lion nigga to Cadence comes in, because I was like, something about this is weird. He starts talking about how the only event of the day is that it was Stephanie's birthday and they were besties, so they were in school together and he gave her a stuffed octopus, I don't know, some shit, he gave her a stuffed something. And so then he goes to Jay's house after, like, he had a free period, so he goes to Jay's house just to check and see if Jay bought Stephanie a birthday gift. And you can hear Sarah being like, why do you give a shit if he bought her a birthday gift? And he's, you know, trying to justify, oh, you know, like, I bought her a gift, you know, so, you know, I thought it would be a good look to help him out. It's with the assist or whatever. It's something about that was a little off.
Here's my thing. I don't know if I would ever let a casual friend borrow my car for a whole day.
That's what I'm saying.
Just
they
to
label
get-
each other as associates, and yeah, it doesn't make
just
sense.
to get his girl a gift, who happens to be my closer friend. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, yeah, I get it. You go over to his crib and you smoke weed. Because everybody who thinks they're cool in high school has the person who graduated a year after, like, before everybody. And they're like, oh, and they're still involved in high school shit.
Yeah.
And, like, I get it. Like, that's your smoking buddy. But, like, you're leaving your whole car and cell phone.
I also wouldn't. Like, why would you leave your cell phone? I also wouldn't pin a random associate to help me, you know, with a murder, cover a murder.
Right. It's just a little odd.
Yeah.
But you know, he said that shit that day was just like any day, and Sarah talks about how quick the jury moved.
Yeah.
You know, the court was 6 weeks, but it only took them a couple hours to find him guilty.
Mm-hmm. And he also talks about how problematic it is that he can't barely remember that day, because he's like, he knows that, you know, it could be perceived as convenient that he can't remember the day, and that it was just, you know, another day or whatever. He's like, but there's nothing I can do, and this is where you hear the frustration, and it seems a little more sincere. He's like, there's nothing I can do to remember that day. Like, there's nothing I can do that's going to jog my memory. He's like, otherwise I would have done it already. So.
Okay. Right. And that's where I've always rested this idea of, like, he didn't do it. I don't believe he committed the act.
I don't either.
At all. I think somebody else did it.
I don't think he did it either.
Yeah, I just don't think he had any knowledge of it. Especially this going around, I don't think he knew. I think that there is a different type of dynamic that with him and Jay that he's not telling us.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but
which they allude to in an episode further down the line, but their relationship changes a lot. Like how both of them define their relationship changes a lot. The last part of this episode focused on what happened with his appeal, like 5 years later. We got into it recently in 2018 and stuff like that. And it's the story of a woman named Asia McClain. She kind of pissed me off, but I got it. I got it. But she pissed me off. It wasn't all her fault. The situation was not her fault.
I understood.
She did what she was supposed to do.
Right. I understood parts of it. So Asia is a girl who Adnan allegedly saw the day that the murder happened in that 21 minutes at the library. Asia wrote 2 letters originally saying the course of what happened that day, and she actually had events that stood out to her as to why she remembered the day. Her boyfriend was late picking her up and she was pissed about it. It was the first big snowstorm of the season and school was closed for several days following that, and she ended up at her boyfriend's house. She had a conversation with Adnan in the library about hay and many other things or what have you. She remembers her boyfriend's reaction to seeing them talking. Like, she had a number of things. So she wrote 2 letters originally stating, they were 2 letters to Adnan. And he never received the first one. But the second one, or did he receive the first one? I can't remember. But the second one is where she was like, I don't understand why you never, why they never called me, why they never hit me up to ask me about the day that I saw you at the library. Because originally, so remember we talked about that original attorney who ended up botching a bunch of cases, which was Adnan's attorney. When those letters were written, she did not use them as evidence, and they did not investigate further into the situation with Asia. So here Asia is basically the main witness that they need to have, but they're not utilizing her. And so it was 2 theories that happened here. It was 1, that she either really just fucked this up, or 2, she ended up throwing it on purpose and this was a strategic move.
Yeah. Which was dumb.
Right.
Now, because Asia did all this, she signed affidavits and everything and never got, and Christina Gutierrez's lawyer didn't use all of this stuff. Adnan filed an appeal because she fucked up. And unfortunately, Asia flakes.
Ooh, bigly too, nigga, like flakes.
Yeah, she said not only does she go missing, she gets found by the prosecutors, and the prosecutors tell her that the family...
They sent a PI.
They sent a PI, private investigator. Adnan's attorney sent a private investigator to find her, which freaked her out. And then she told prosecution and said, the family pressured me to write those affidavits.
And basically did a guilty, that nigga is guilty.
And this is what made Sarah really get into the story. She said, this is the first case that's ever come to me.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, let me see if I can finagle this. So she finds Asia's boyfriend and friend from high school, and they get they all live in Maryland somewhere, so it wasn't that hard. Asia, however, moved out of the way, and so she's talking to Asia, and who remembers vividly that day. Years later, because she still remember how angry she was about and how she was left at that damn library for hours.
Very black woman.
Yes, she was like, fuck that nigga.
I know it was cold. If it was the first snow of the season, it was cold. She was probably like, bitch, my hair.
My note says, black woman don't forget shit.
No.
That's what my note is. But, Adnan was like, when she was like, Sarah tells Adnan, "Oh my gosh, I found Sarah," and he was like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, not to like be mean, like I'm grateful, I'm glad, you know, you found her, thank you, I'm so appreciative, but like this isn't gonna help me now.
No.
I wish you would have did this, you know, 2 years ago when I had my other appeal.
Yeah, it was real nonchalant. It was kind of a real white moment for Sarah too. She was like, "Oh my God, I found Asia," and he's like, "Cool," and she's like, "Oh, I thought you would react differently," and he's like, "So listen, bitch.
Right.
I've been sitting up in this motherfucker, and if this shit would have happened earlier, your boy would have been excited boots.
Right.
But at this point in time, this just feels like, you know, a lot for me right now, and it's not. It feels useless." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that like that."
Exactly, which happens a lot during the series. And so,
yeah.
That was pretty much the end of the episode. For episode 1, we have 9 more to go. So hopefully you enjoy. Strap in because it's about to get even more wild.
Yes, as of right now, his appeal has been denied. That was the end of that episode. The judge denied that appeal. So Asia continues to be useless right now. And she has now switched her narrative back, even though she continues to be useless to the case.
So we'll see you all next time for another episode of the Serial Recap. Again, tell us what you think down below, what your theories are, and we'll see you next time. Bye.